Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today I want to talk about shame. I want to talk about deep shame and the kind of shame that makes us close down, run away, close off from the world, shut down, and hide. Right? So if you've ever had something, especially chronic illness or chronic pain, we feel shame. We feel somehow that we've failed, that we are not good enough, that we're not strong enough to overcome it, that we're not smart enough to find the answers, that we're somehow too stupid, we haven't tried hard enough, we're failing, at a basic level of being able to fix, manipulate, take care of our own bodies, minds, physical bodies. And that's why it can be so embarrassing to have mental illness, physical pain, chronic illness of any kind, because it can feel like, other people are looking at us, judging us, talking about us, and saying, look at them. They're not normal. They don't know how to do it. They can't do it. If only they would do this or this. We feel judged, and we feel already bad enough that we somehow can't figure out these own answers in order to solve our own problems. And we know that people look down on other people who have mental illness, chronic pain, whatever the symptoms might be. And you feel different, you feel outcasted, and you feel shame. And shame is this feeling where you hide yourself away from the world. You close off from relationships, from love, from life. You shut down. There's no more opening and evolving. You're closing off. You're shutting down, right? And the more you close off and shut down and shut out and hide from the world, the smaller your world gets, the harder your life becomes, the more lonely, right? The more lonely and cut off and judged and abandoned we feel. And we do it to ourselves. We close down ourselves. But yet we feel, because no one steps in and says, no, don't close down, we feel like people are allowing us to do it. Therefore, we feel abandoned, right? And so it's a deep cycle when you're talking about shame. And, it's one of those things that can stay with you and deepen as you go through, right? So it doesn't just go away if you suddenly get a little better or have symptom relief or whatever. It stays with us because we have this sense that we're being judged, and that if we're not like everyone else, or if we can't figure it out, or if we're not good enough, that we will be left behind, we'll be left out, we'll be judged, we'll be talked about, and we'll be abandoned, essentially, and we'll be shamed. And shame is just like this deep embarrassment almost, that we don't measure up, that no one could love us, that we're not good enough the way we are. We just, it's a very deep feeling. So shame is one of the lowest, most bottomest vibration feelings that we can feel, right? Because we feel wrong as a person. We don't feel that we did something wrong. We feel that we are wrong. We are not lovable. We are not good enough. We feel this embarrassment, this deep abandonment and cut off and loneliness and isolation from the rest of the world because we just can't measure up. And it really is a self-imposed feeling, because rarely do people sit around and talk that badly about you or judge you that harshly or spend their life. People are spending their life focused on them, truly, not really you. But it hurts us so deeply And it cuts us like a knife, so at the center of our core, this feeling of embarrassment and judgment and not being loved, not being accepted is so deep. It can cut us, right? The simplest comment or look or conversation overheard or anything can cut us so deeply that we carry these scar shames around in our body. And it really, this is one of the biggest things that hurts us in chronic illness and chronic disease. Because the cutting off, the process of cutting off, of shutting down, is a type of death, right? That's what happens when people die. Now, your physical body might not be dying, but your heart, your soul is. It's a shutting down of your soul. It's a shutting down of this beautiful soul that came to this earth to expand, to learn, to grow, to love, to evolve, to be part of, right? We need to feel like we are part of all the other souls here on earth, that we're all one, because that's truly what we are, right? We are all one. We are all God. We are all part of this universe. We're all one. And in essence, when we believe that we're so alone, that everything else is part and everything else is one, and we're separate, that is incredibly toxic. And it's like dying a slow death, because that's what death is when you allow yourself to exit from this world. You shut down from this world, you close off from this world. You no longer feel part of this world. You feel like you must move on. Your soul feels like it doesn't belong here anymore. It's time to go, right? And that's what this shame does for you when you carry it. You carry shame. Okay, hang on. I'm going to come back in a second. Okay, so what can we do about shame? That deep, thick, dark shame. Shame is one of the most, it's such a dark feeling, right? It's black, it's thick, it's like tar. It is one of the most sludgiest vibrations out there. I mean, it's just so, it's so awful. It's so thick and murky and dark and black. And it's so hard to live with this kind of shame that we carry around. You know, this feeling that we're not wanted, we're not loved, we're called out, we're judged, we're criticized, we're all of these things. And one of the first things that you can do when you're dealing with shame is you have to realize that you need to take responsibility for this shame, and that you need to heal it. Shame just doesn't go away on its own for whatever reason, as much as we want it to. It takes work. This is some of the most deepest healing work that you can do. So how do we do it? How do we do the work? All right, so first you want to think of a situation, an event, a person, something that you feel, a time in your life that you feel deep shame about, deep rejection, deep abandonment, deep, you did something wrong, you felt you were wrong, you felt terrible, you feel terrible. You want to think about this time, this person, this event, this situation, this period in your life, and you want to really think about it. So you can think of a memory. So let me walk you through this and give you an example from my own life. One where I felt deep shame. Okay, so you go back to a memory. So I have a memory of, after all of this happened with my health, and I was in such pain, severe physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. I was unable to cope. I was unable to make it out. I felt like I had no choice but to commit suicide. I felt deep shame. And I felt like I had lost everyone and everything in my life because nobody knew. I couldn't express what I was feeling to anyone because they would think I was crazy. I tried to tell people, what was going on, and they just looked at me like as if I had lost it, if I was crazy, which I was not. But the feeling that they were judging me and criticizing me and not believing me, right? Not believing me from the injuries that I sustained from these medications, and not believing that this could truly happen to a person. Okay, so, I've already been experiencing the shame at this point in my life, feeling very isolated, alone, and, I have this moment, this memory, where I'm standing at the edge of my daughter's crib. She's less than a year old. She's probably around 5-6 months old, and I'm saying goodbye to her. I'm telling her that I love her and that I'm going to go away. I'm going to do my best so that I can come back, a mom to her, so that I can come back and I can figure this out. I can beat this. I can heal. And then I have this moment of hugging my son and, driving away, having my husband driving away when I left. And those moments of leaving my children are filled with such shame. Now, I was going to a detox rehab facility in real life, and I was going there, and I did have a plan. I wanted to get better. I needed help in order to do this, and I was going to be there for what I thought would be, about 4 or 5 weeks, which turned into like 8 or 9 weeks, almost 9 weeks. So that's a long time to be with your children. But when I was saying goodbye, I really didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know whether I was going to come back. I wanted to. I made this vow that I would. But the shame in leaving them, in walking out the door, in leaving my baby, it was more than I could cope with, right? It was a shame that filled me everywhere. Like everybody, nobody could ever understand that. Because truth be told, I couldn't even understand it. Nothing in this world could have made me leave my children. I mean, that is not how I grew up. I grew up believing deep, deep values. You never leave your children. You could never. I judged people. I looked down on people. How could they ever, leave their children? How could anyone ever leave a child? And the shame that I felt was so deep, so raw. And I couldn't forgive myself. I couldn't understand myself. So how could I expect anyone else to ever understand what I was doing? And that it was a desperate attempt to save my life. Or I never would have made that decision. But still, shame sits with you. So how do I heal this shame? How did I heal this deep shame, right? Years later, this memory would pop up, the memory of me standing over and saying goodbye and kissing my babies goodbye. How do you heal that shame, right? And every time something goes wrong in our lives, I think back, was it because I left them? I have this shame, I have this guilt, and I have almost like a black mark on me where I feel like people can see me. When they meet me, I feel like people look at me and they would judge me. That's the woman who left her children. That's the woman who went crazy. That's the woman who couldn't take it, right? There's all these internal feelings that I have about the situation that happened to me, none of which are true, but I couldn't explain, that to people at the time. Because the reality is I did leave and nobody understood. Nobody understood the decision making that went into that, and that it was a last resort, right? It was that or suicide. It was that or death. Nobody understood how extreme it was from their point of view, looking in, like, how could you do that? How could you do that? And I felt a black mark all over me that nobody could ever like me again. No one could ever love me again. Nobody would ever think of me as good again. Nobody could ever understand me again. And so it's these kinds of deep shames. I'm sure that you have your own situation where you need to heal. So how did I do it? How do you do it? Okay. Step number one, you should go back to that memory, go back to that emotion, you go back to that time in your life, that feeling, and you just replay it. You replay it, you think about it, and now instead of judging yourself, which is what we did the first time around, right? Judging ourselves, hating ourselves, self-loathing, self-criticizing, self-judgment, right, that brings on this deep shame. I want you to go back with almost like a detached. You're looking back, but you're looking back like as you now, knowing what you know now. So instead of hindsight looking back where you're just like judging that situation, you're going back now and you're looking really at that person that you were then. And I want you to try to feel what that person was feeling, why that person did what they did, right? All the emotion, all the confusion, all the grief, all the devastation, all the helplessness and desperation that went into whatever happened with you, like it did with me, right? I was desperate. I was alone. I was confused. I was unable to cope with the amount of physical suffering that I was feeling. And I was wanting to do the best thing. So I want you to go back and I want you to give that person a break in your mind, like, you poor darling, you sweet girl, you sweet child, you sweet baby, you did the best you could. You were doing the best you could. You needed help, you needed love, you needed something that you weren't getting. You needed understanding, you needed all these things, and you didn't get them. So I want you to pause for a minute. I want you to just think of yours for 1 minute here, and just allow yourself to feel that. Right? Allow yourself to feel empathy, deep empathy for this person that you used to be, this memory, this person, this child of the universe and of God who was so desperate that they thought they had no other way. And just feel the empathy for this person. And I want you to comfort them. And I want you to love them. And I want you to tell them, you are doing the best you can. I understand. And you're brave. And you're brave. And you have good reasons for doing what you're doing. And I understand you. I want you to tell that person, I understand you. Right? Because this is where shame comes from when we don't feel understood. We don't feel like anyone could ever understand us or love us, right? So we need to give that to ourselves back in that moment, that love, that deep, unconditional empathy, understanding. And we need to say, do what you're going to do. We don't want to try to erase that memory or pretend it didn't happen. So I would say to myself in those moments, do what you're going to do. It's okay, right? Because I know what happens in that memory. I kiss them goodbye and I walk out the door, and every fiber in me wishes that I could go back and change that, right? But I can't, so I accept what happened. And instead I imagine angels' wings, huge angels' wings. I want you to imagine this, enveloping you from above. Just these gorgeous, almost invisible, see-through wings, wrapping me and my baby, that whole room up with love. And then I watch myself play it out. I watch myself give my child the kiss goodbye. I imagine these wings wrapped around me, that it's like I'm fully understood, it's okay, things are going to work out, that this is okay, that this is for the best, that things will turn out in the end, okay? That this is necessary, that I'm meant to do this. So I want you to give yourself permission now to do the thing you wish you didn't do, okay? To give yourself the permission that you never gave yourself at the time, because how could you? Instead of the self-loathing, I want you to give yourself love, and I want you to give yourself permission. And I want you to feel all the feelings that come up right now, and in that moment, just allow yourself to feel the grief, the relief of being able to do this without being judged. Just the give it to the angels, to give it over to God that you never did at the time. You never gave it away. You carried all that judgment and criticism for yourself as you did what you felt you had no choice. And I want you to give it over now to these angel wings, and I want you to imagine beautiful soft rain pouring down on you in that memory, pouring down on the room, pouring down on me, pouring down on my child, pouring down on you wherever you are in this memory, pouring down on you. It's a beautiful, soft, warm rain, and it washes you clean. Okay, it absolves you. It absolves the room, it absolves the child, it absolves me, it absolves all the feelings of hurt. It washes you clean. As the angel's wings are around you, you play with the memory, you do what you need to do, and you give yourself permission and empathy and love as you do it. Okay, so this is a really important work. This kind of work is really important, and you may have to do it in meditation several times until you feel the power of this, okay? And then I want you to come back to the present, and actually before you come back to the present, I want you to stay in that moment a little bit longer, as the rain's coming down, as you're being enveloped in the wings, and I want you to say you're sorry to whoever you need to say sorry to that child, to yourself. And you can say the Ho'oponopono prayer here. I have a video. If you go back and check Lisa Heal Yourself Ho'oponopono, you will see what the prayer is all about, and you can watch that video. But for now, you just say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And so these are 4 very powerful statements, and you say them over and over. You say them to yourself in that moment. You say them to the child in that moment. Your child self in that moment. You say it to whoever was in that memory with you, that moment, that time of your life. You say it to all the people who are looking at you, who are judging you, who are criticizing you. You say it to the universe. You repeat this over and over. I'm sorry. Right? I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And you allow that prayer to just stay with you in your heart. And when you're done, you come back to present moment. You play with the memory. You do what you need to do. You empathize with yourself, and you give yourself permission. And you imagine yourself being totally 100% forgiven and loved and accepted and understood. And you know that God is with you, taking care of the situation you've given away. And you go ahead and you do what you've done. You come back to the present moment, and you allow it to be gone. You allow that feeling of, I understand what happened, I love you. You allow that feeling to stay with you, right? Of self-love instead of self-criticism and self-loathing and self-judgment. You allow yourself the gift of self-love and self-empathy and self-understanding and self-permission, right? And then, if, like for me, there's a child in this, or if there's a parent, or a friend, or a person, or whatever, you want to go to them in real life now. And maybe you can and you can't go to them for whatever reason, but you want to, now in your real life, tell them sorry. And you can go to them, you can have a conversation, you can tell them how sorry you were, you can tell them what happened, right? You can break the silence around it now. You can write a letter. You can do your journaling about it. If the person's passed over, you can write that letter, that final letter, that talk that you wish you could have had with them. If it's a child, like, I have told one of my children about this. I haven't told my daughter, but I have told her, like, in meditation, and, I do plan to tell her. So it's really important that you tell at this point, that you break this shame and the silence around these things, that you have the conversation, whether real or imagined, in your mind, so that you can now feel like the shame cycle and the silence is broken and that you can let it go. And then the last sort of step here, after we do all that and we make amends in real life and we break the silence and the shame around it in real life, and then we must, on a daily basis, allow ourselves to look people in the eyes. For years, I couldn't look somebody in the eyes. I want you to look people in the eyes and smile. And as they walk by, even if it's just a casual hello, how are you, to somebody you don't even know, or whether it's your closest person and you're looking them in the eyes, I want you to imagine every time somebody looks you in the eyes and you smile at each other, I want you to imagine that they are a sign, they're a symbol of the universe forgiving you. Every person who looks you in the eyes and you give eye contact you, I want you to imagine them saying in your mind, I forgive you, I understand you. You did a good job, you did what you had to do. It's over, it's forgiven. I want you to imagine them saying this to you, whether it's the briefest of eye contact that you give, whatever. I want you to be able to hold your head up like you're understood, you're loved, and you're totally 100% forgiven, and that they don't hold judgment for you anymore, that they completely understand you. And this really helps to get you out of shame. This really helps to allow you to hold your head back up in the world again, which can be so hard after you have deep shame. It can be so hard to feel included and a sense of belonging. So I want you to imagine these people, everybody, the universe, everything and everybody that you meet, opening their arms to you, almost as a sense of come home. You belong again. You belong here again. It's okay. Come home to me. Come home to us. Right? Every stranger, come home. Every stranger is saying to you, come home to me. Every person in your life is saying, you belong. You belong again. Right? This is over. You belong to us. Please come back. Please come back and feel that sense of belonging. You're needed. You're loved. We need you to come back. Right? So you really want to feel that deep sense of forgiveness, acceptance, and belonging. And you must give it to yourself, right? Every time you look at somebody, every time you're talking to somebody, every time you have that memory, I want you to allow yourself to belong again. I want you to accept what happened. I want you to wrap yourself in those angel's arms and involve yourself with the rain. And I want you to choose to love, to empathize, and to wash it away, to be forgiven now, and to belong back in society, to everybody, and to the world. You belong just as much as anyone else. You can be accepted the same as everybody else. There's nothing more to prove. There's nothing more you can say or do. You've said I'm sorry. You've asked for forgiveness. And now it's time to forgive yourself. Right? To love yourself deeply and to allow yourself back in to the world that you are now shutting yourself out from. Allow yourself to connect again, where you are actually doing the isolating. So you have to allow yourself to belong and connect to the universe, to people. Again, once again in this world, just as if a child had done something terrible, you would absolve it and you would say, it's okay, we're starting fresh, I love you, you belong, and you would welcome them back in. That's what you need to do to yourself. So I hope this video has been helpful on shame. And shame's, again, not an easy one. It's one of the hardest. And it can take some time. And it can take a deep commitment to love yourself and to not abandon yourself again as you walk through these feelings and do the deep emotional work that's required to heal shame. But the good news is, as difficult as this is, and as many feelings that come up that you will have to feel and that you should feel and you can't turn away from and you cannot push down, you need to experience them and feel them and allow them and then accept them. Accept yourself. forgive yourself, right? As hard as this work will be, it's also some of the most rewarding work. It's also some of the most healing work. It pushes you forward. Once you feel that sense of relief and belonging once again in the world, and your connections start to build, you will find that you start to heal. You will find that this will heal you quite literally and transform you back again, and you'll see as you do it. If you have any questions, please post them below, but start this work in meditation every day and see what happens. Watch yourself transform, watch yourself start to live in the world again and feel healed and whole. I hope it's been helpful.